Humanity learned of the tragedy not through diplomatic channels or warnings from allies, but through a broken transmission filled with static, screams, and the unmistakable roar of atmospheric shields collapsing. The message lasted 13 seconds. 13 seconds in which an entire world begged Earth for help that could not possibly arrive in time. Heliot Prime had been a peaceful place, the kind of colony that children drew pictures of in school. Wide amber fields under twin suns, cities built low to preserve the landscape, research stations focused on growing food for outer colonies instead of weapons. The population of 3 million was spread across terraformed valleys, habitat rings, and orbital farms. Not one of them could have imagined that their home would be reduced to silent ash before the day's rotation completed. The first sign of danger came when long-range sensors detected unidentified vessels descending into the colony's upper atmosphere. They did not broadcast identification codes, they ignored flight lane protocols, and they shut down civilian comm channels. By the time colony defense drones attempted contact, a coordinated energy surge burned through them, severing communications entirely. The surviving fragments of recorded data later showed elongated hulls marked with the insignia of the Galactic Dominion, a radical vassal state serving the Galactic Empire. The raiders moved with the precision of a force that had rehearsed the strike countless times. Heliot Prime launched emergency protocols, evacuation beacons, alarms, mass messages, but the colony's civilian infrastructure was never designed to resist a military assault. The attack began with kinetic strikes against shield generators. 4 impacts. 4 explosions. A glowing lattice of protective energy flickered once and vanished. Panic spread as families grabbed their children and ran toward designated shelters. But the shelters were built for natural disasters, not orbital bombardment. Thousands died before they even reached them. The colony governor, a soft-spoken scientist named Darren Koss, rushed to the command center, broadcasting the final message that reached Earth. His voice was steady, but the tremor in his breath betrayed everything. To the Terran Union, we are under attack. Unknown forces, heavy bombardment, shields are gone. If anyone hears this, remember us. Remember Heliot Prime. And then a flash of white consumed the feed from orbit. The Empire monitored the destruction. Their ships stayed at the edge of the system, observing from afar, recording every moment with clinical detachment. Their duty logs would later reveal the truth. They had received multiple distress signals from the colony. They simply chose to ignore them. The Empire issued one cold internal directive: non-interference. Proceed with observation. They watched a human world burn as if it were a scheduled scientific experiment. When the footage leaked to Earth, humanity's collective grief collapsed into something far sharper. Mourning turned into the kind of fury that does not fade with speeches or apologies. News networks replayed the destruction over and over. Families running, the sky splitting open, the final flare. Vigils formed across continents. People stood in silence as names of the dead scrolled endlessly on screens. For the first time in decades, Earth felt the same emotion simultaneously: righteous anger. The Terran Senate convened in emergency session. Representatives from Mars, the Belt, Europa, and the outer colonies filled the chamber. No one argued about jurisdiction or budget. No one called for patience or diplomacy. Everyone had seen the footage. Heliot Prime was not just a colony. It was a symbol of what humanity had become: builders, growers, explorers. To lose it in such a brutal way was to strike at the core of the Terran identity. The Terran Defense Command presented a classified report summarizing intercepted Empire transmissions. The Empire admitted to receiving Heliot Prime's distress calls. They acknowledged that the Galactic Dominion executed the attack. They stated that the event was a regional dispute, not worth their involvement. In their eyes, 3 million dead humans were an internal matter among lesser species. That sentence, lesser species, ignited the chamber. For years, humans had tolerated the Empire's arrogance, endured the condescending speeches about their primitive emotional nature, and accepted their position as junior members of the galactic community. But this time, The Empire had crossed a line that no human civilization would ever forgive. As Terran Senator Leora Yames said in her now historic speech, "Humanity did not come this far to be silent when our children are murdered. If the Empire will not hold the Galthar accountable, then we will." The Terran Union enacted the Red Directive, an ancient protocol reserved for existential threats. It authorized the full mobilization of the military, expansion of shipyards, conscription of volunteers, and activation of classified weapons stored since the interplanetary crisis. Red Directive meant one thing to every citizen: total war. Factories across Earth lit up with activity. Orbital stations shifted their priorities to weapons fabrication. Overcrowded recruitment centers struggled to process the sheer number of volunteers. Some were former soldiers, others were scientists, engineers, farmers, even artists. Everyone wanted to contribute. Humanity had a long memory, and the more the Empire pretended that the massacre was a minor inconvenience, the stronger humanity's resolve became. But anger alone does not win wars. Terran intelligence agencies began piecing together the strategic implications of the attack. Why had the Galthar Dominion targeted Heliot Prime? Why was the Empire so eager to distance itself while simultaneously monitoring the destruction? Analysts concluded that the Empire had funded Galthar extremists for years, using them as expendable tools to destabilize younger civilizations. It was a method to keep humanity submissive without engaging in direct warfare. But they had underestimated the one thing that no alien species fully understood: humanity's capacity to adapt, survive, and retaliate far beyond predicted limits. Terran Black Ops units conducted covert missions to intercept communications between Galthar warlords. They confirmed a terrifying detail: the attack was intended not just to destroy a colony, but to provoke fear and compliance. The Galthar leaders believed humans would retreat inward, too afraid to oppose the Empire. Instead, they awakened something ancient in the human psyche, the instinct that arises when family is threatened. The Terran fleet, once modest, surged in size. Shipyards around Luna and Mars worked around the clock, forging hulls and weapon systems with mechanical precision. Engineers reactivated blueprints that had been shelved for decades. Among them was the Titan-class dreadnought project, massive warships designed not as symbols of power but as unmistakable warnings. Each Titan required resources equivalent to a small city, but Earth approved every request without debate. Nothing was too great a price. The Terran Union's decision spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. In the days following humanity's mobilization, space around Earth grew brighter than any star as the war machine awakened. Where once orbital lanes carried civilian transports and trade vessels, now they roared with the movement of destroyers, carriers, troop barges, and armor-fitted freighters repurposed into tools of war. Nations unified. Colonies answered the call. Every shipyard from Luna's metallic caverns to the hollowed cores of Martian mountains worked without pause. The Empire dismissed at all their grand halls of crystalline architecture and ancient banners. They insisted that humanity's fury was nothing more than an emotional outburst. They believed humans would slow, then stop, then beg for some diplomatic compromise once they saw the size of the force arrayed against them. No species had ever challenged the Empire and won. Most had not challenged the Empire at all. But unknown to the Empire, the Terran Union was not preparing a symbolic retaliation. Humanity had committed to something far more absolute, dismantling the systems that allowed the massacre of Heliot Prime to occur in the first place. The first blow fell at the Galthar Dominion. Operation Dawnfire began in a silence so absolute it felt like the universe held its breath. Terran stealth cruisers sailed through the dark, their hulls absorbing light and their engines running on near-undetectable quantum drives. Empire sensors, designed to catch conventional threats, saw nothing. They scanned empty space, failing to realize that death had already slipped past their lines. To the heart of the Galthar Dominion were 14 shipyards, enormous ring-shaped factories that forged the raider fleets responsible for Heliot Prime's destruction. Those shipyards never saw the Terrans coming. A tremor of light pulsed across the void. No warning, no ultimatum, no demand for surrender. Only retribution. Dawnfire-class warheads, compact yet devastating, struck all 14 shipyards within 11 seconds. Chrome rings shattered. Docked raider vessels detonated. Thousands of tons of metal folded inward as enormous industrial complexes collapsed. Workers fled in panic, only to see the impossible. Human ships appearing from the dark, silent, ghost-like, completing their strike without exchanging a single shot. By the end of the first minute, every Galthar shipyard was gone. The Empire received the news with disbelief. Their high admirals dismissed the assault as luck or a desperate stunt. They did not understand that this was humanity fighting with restraint. The Galthar Dominion, enraged and humiliated, demanded that the Empire strike back immediately. That demand pleased the Empire greatly. They wanted to crush human pride publicly, so they assembled a punitive fleet. 200 Empire warships, a force meant to intimidate, not to destroy, jumped into Terran space. Their commanders expected humans to panic, scatter, maybe surrender to avoid annihilation. Instead, they arrived facing something they had not believed possible: the Terran fleet, already waiting for them. Among the ships humanity deployed that day were 2 of the newly awakened Titan-class dreadnoughts. Their armored hulls glowed with the light of thousands of shield generators. Their cannons aligned, humming with power as if eager to speak for the dead of Heliot Prime. The Empire Admiral demanded human surrender. Humanity answered by firing first. The battle lasted 8 minutes. The Empire fleet fractured under the precision of Terran targeting systems. Their shields, once considered unbreakable, collapsed under antimatter warheads designed specifically for the weaknesses human analysts had identified. The dreadnought's broadside cannons fired beams capable of melting ship bows in a matter of seconds. Empire vessels attempted to retreat, but long-range Terran rail batteries disabled their engines with surgical precision. Out of the 200 Empire ships sent to punish humanity, 197 were destroyed, 2 were disabled, and 1 escaped to carry the message Earth was not bluffing. Across the Empire, panic whispered through the corridors of power. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's citizens heard a word they believed extinct: defeat, yet the Empire still did not understand. They viewed the engagement as an isolated skirmish. They assumed the Terrans had used everything they had to win that single encounter. If they had known what was coming, they might have sued for peace. But arrogance blinds even the ancient. Their next attempt to break humanity took place at the Kathos Rift, a region of space infamous for violent gravitational fluctuations and ion storms. The Empire believed they had trapped the Terrans by luring a fleet into the rift, where navigational systems were known to fail. They deployed minefields, interceptor wings, and elite warships to ensure overwhelming victory. Humanity walked through the trap as if it were nothing more than a challenge to solve. Terran ships, outfitted with adaptive shield harmonics and quantum-linked fleet navigation, moved through the rift with unnatural stability. Every gravitational deviation was countered automatically by Oracle 3's real-time predictions. Empire commanders struggled to maintain formation while Terran destroyers sliced through them with coordinated strikes. Mines detonated behind the Terran fleet, not in front of it. Drone swarms, thousands of tiny autonomous machines, stormed the skies, overwhelming Empire weapon systems and disabling them without hesitation. The battle was brutal. Terran casualties were real. 6,000 lives ended in hours. But the cost to the Empire was far heavier. Almost their entire elite squadron annihilated, their tactical superiority shattered, and their belief in human inferiority destroyed. The Empire began to fear humanity. Not their ships, not their weapons, but their will. In the weeks that followed, humanity unleashed a relentless campaign that spread across 3 sectors. Terran Black Ops teams sabotaged hyperlane relays. Human codebreakers infiltrated Empire communication nodes, turning their encryption against them. Smuggled messages reached oppressed species across the galaxy, telling them what Earth had accomplished, what Earth was fighting for. For the first time, the galaxy dared to imagine the Empire was not immortal. The Galthar Dominion, once arrogant and brutal, now trembled. Their warlords argued among themselves, terrified that humanity would come for them next. They were right. The Terran Union launched a full-scale ground offensive. Terran Marines descended on Galactic Prime under the cover of orbital bombardment. Their boots hit the ground in a cacophony of thunder as they swept through fortified cities, disabling weapons emplacements and capturing key strongholds. The Galethar fought with a surprising ferocity, but they were not prepared for humans who had trained for war as if it were their second nature. Urban warfare tore through the Dominion's capital. Gas mask soldiers advanced through smoke-filled streets. Aerial drones strafed rooftops. Human infantry cleared buildings with swift efficiency. Despite the violence, Terran soldiers observed strict rules. Civilians were not targets. Human medics even treated wounded Galthar when possible, leaving the Dominion stunned. They had expected vengeance. They found discipline. Human commanders stormed the warlord citadels, forcing a surrender broadcast across the Dominion. Terrans stood before the cameras, armor blood-streaked, voices steady, offering a single message: "This is for Heliot Prime." The galaxy watched silently. Empires trembled.